All right, hey everyone. We're going to be doing just a quick lecture here on Stephen Marche's "Is Facebook Making Us Lonely?" This was an essay that came out, I think, in the Atlantic Monthly, I think May of 2012, I believe. Which is, I mean, that is kind of ancient. You're right, and digital literature, I think, and certainly, especially on social media. So there are a lot of things have come and gone since, including God, Trump and cancel culture and all kinds of other things, right? But for now, we'll a bit. I do think there's something kind of prescient about this piece. I think he makes a lot of good points. I also think, listen, that this is going to be our first reading on, of the first of the arguments readings that we're reading in preparation for your argument papers. And listen, this is a very imperfect and not a great. I do not think this is a great example. We're gonna have some astonishing examples of arguments. I would not put this in there. I think it's has a lot of weaknesses. He seems to realize that himself. I think the writer, but I do think sometimes a writer's job is not to answer, but to and often much more powerful to ask, and this is what art does too, right? You ask a great question here, right, as opposed to trying to answer things. And I do think he got people to sort of. I just made a huge splash when it came out, and I do think and a lot of pushback too. And again, that second piece we read by Eric Kleinberg, really pushing back and making some fair points too. But I do think he's still probably more right than wrong about a lot of what he's saying. And I think, boy, at the time, again, maybe a little dated, but really. Showing just a lot of insightful points, and kind of got a conversation going that needed to be got going, right? So it's still, I think, a worthy piece. Also, some of the writing here, especially the beginning, as I'll get to in a second, is just fantastic. And that opening, I is as good as anything, as any opening we're going to cover. And again, a lot of you in high school, right, had remember the opening hook, often the dreaded opening hook, by my students. And here, look, we it doesn't get much better than this. I'm gonna actually, I'll take a second here and I'll read it first. Yvette Vickers, a former Playboy Playmate B-movie star, best known for her role in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, would have been 83 last August, but nobody knows exactly how old she was when she died. According to the Los Angeles coroner's report, she lay dead for the better part of a year before a neighbor and fellow actress, a woman named Susan Savage, noticed cobwebs and yellowing letters in her mailbox, reached through a broken window to unlock the door, and pushed her way through the piles of junk mail and mounds of clothing that barricaded the house. Upstairs, she found Vickers' body mummified near a heater that was still running. Her computer was on too, its glow permeating the empty space. The Los Angeles Times posted a story headlined, "Mummified Body of Former Playboy Playmate Yvette Vickers Found in Her Benedict Canyon Home," which quickly went viral. Within 2 weeks, by Technorati's counts, Vickers' lonesome death was already the subject of 16,057 Facebook posts, 887 tweets. She had long been a horror movie icon, a symbol of Hollywood's capacity to exploit our most basic fears in the silliest ways. Now she was an icon of a new and different kind of horror. Our growing fear of loneliness might be kind of shoehorning that one in. Certainly, she received much more attention in death than she did in the final years of her life. With no children, no religious group, and no immediate social circle of any kind, she had begun as an elderly woman to look elsewhere for companionship. Savage later told the Los Angeles Magazine that she had searched Vickers' phone bills for clues about the life that led to such an end. In the months before her grotesque death, Vickers had made calls not to friends or family, but to distant fans who had found her through fan conventions and internet sites. So, okay. And again, this is just an absolutely just pitch perfect allegorical opening here to what the entire rest of that essay is going to be about, right? I mean, this is an essay that's going to be kind of pondering the question, never, and getting wishy-washy, never quite fully, which makes it a bit of a weak argument, but I still think it's a worthy read. That's is, as the title says, Facebook and other social media too. You could, again, Instagram wasn't really, it was still, I think, a camera filter at the time. But is it increasing or at least exacerbating, the loneliness? And this opening where you get a literal, a former beauty queen, right? A Playboy playmate and a movie star, once the absolute top pinnacle, right, of her socioeconomic status in her culture. Woman who was the opposite of lonely, was anything but lonely, right? You admired for her physical beauty and desired by men, probably, obsessed over by women, and she dies all alone and so alone that her literal mummified corpse is found in her bed months and months, almost a year after she dies. That is something else. And you add to that the fact that the computer is glowing right in her apartment, and the last thing she's doing again was not reaching out to family or friends, but chasing those likes and mentions, right, in her social media posts, and talking with these sort of fanboy nerds, of the horror movie nerds, on internet forums. I mean, that's there's a very sort of a sad ending, and again, taking all the sort of anxiety he's going to be drudging up about American culture throughout the rest of the essay, and sort of concentrating it into this one remarkable and kind of macabre sort of image, right? And it's so well written too in that opening, right? We get lots of vivid language, the junk mail piling up, right, inside the house. She had to break a window to get in. That's active. The glow of the computer and the mummified corpse make for a hell of an image there. It's just a clinic on effective writing, and then getting down into the next and all the 16,000 plus Facebook posts it generated, which again is a sort of likes. And boy, I tell you what, I have a 12-year-old who's on TikTok and listening to her sometimes, followers and likes and things like that. And boy, it is the new sort of social capital right now. And then as we move on through the piece, he's quite, is this a good thing? Is this a healthy thing? And Marche he's obviously implying he doesn't think it is. He never quite goes. And again, 2012 maybe was hard to do this. He won't quite make the declarative statement there, but he does poke a lot of, or at least puts up a lot of things we should be concerned and wondering about. Among them, basically it's a real live face-to-face physical social interaction. I think we've all now just lived through this pandemic, right, where God, it is so horrible just not touching other people, giving hugs, and even if you're not missing the more obvious things, the hug, and listen, most of us manage, at least we're not isolated from those we're closest to, right? The people we sleep with, and kiss and hug and touch in that sense. Most of us who have that still have it. But even just, the more social hugs and the handshakes and the, kind of, touching somebody, passing somebody in the grocery store. No, you go ahead, right? Thanks, man. And then, there's just a million little things. We are we need, we're basically chimpanzees, right? We're not quite, combing bugs out of one another's fur and then eating them the way but we're not that far removed from that. And there's a lot, human infants die without touch, right? And I think we've all, sort of seen how affected we've all been, through this. And I do think, and look what social media has done to people. I mean, people have gone insane in this year, and I'm not even going to get into some of the political things and stuff that have gone on. But there is something about taking human beings evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, a long, long time, to socialize the way we socialize. And human beings evolved, basically based upon probably reciprocity, right, which is a sort of unsplittable atom at the center of all human morality. The way we get along is, the golden rule: do unto others which again is reciprocity. And that's what keeps people, human beings from, why we've become less and less violent over time, and how we're able to sort of live together in large groups. Give me a sec. And the smallest sort of staying with my metaphor here, unsplittable atom, the molecule of that movement is the human interaction, the one-on-one interaction. And when you take, again, when you're speaking with someone, there's facial expressions, and the eyes. There's a million. I forget how many muscles there are in the face. Something like a ridiculous amount, anyway, right? And we are spectacular. Most of us can tell when we're being lied to, even by a stranger. We're not 100%, but we're pretty good. And people who are really good at fooling people, like psychopaths and people, scare the hell out of us, right? There's voice intonation. There is the touch, and all kinds of physical cues. I mean, again, if you ever been at a party, when a fight's about to break out, the air gets charged different. Right? There's an electricity kind of crackling in the air. Everyone gets uncomfortable. We feel things in really subtle, nuanced ways we can't even quite express. And to take all that richness, much of which is almost immaterial and very difficult to even kind of explain, and you flatten that out, you separate those people from their physical space, and it's just word, just text only, back and forth. It quickly can devolve into these sort of, one of the major faults of human nature, right, is this angels and devils thinking. The other, again, you see it in American politics right now, is an easy place to go where, if you're conservative, the libtards are wrong and stupid and evil about, everything, and if you're, on the left, they're all racist and this and that, right? We just ignore, flatten everything into these sort of false binaries, and act like that. And it is so easy it's so much easier to get into that type of terrible thinking when it's just text you're looking at. And the things we say to each other, it's a little bit like driving in a car. I remember Jerry Seinfeld, the comic, had a great bit once. I don't know if it was, I think it was Seinfeld. If it was someone else, my apologies to whoever I'm not giving credit to here. But to talk about, there's something about being in a car, right? You're isolated, you're encapsulated in the steel thing. You're also driving at a very fast pace, and if somebody, you really need to slam on those brakes, boom, your adrenaline, your fight or flight, right? That adrenaline burst gets, shot through every vein in your body, right? And boy, you motherfucker, you say all kinds. I mean, if somebody cut you off in an elevator, you would never say, right? You'd never speak to them like that. But in a car, and again, I think we get into that sort of rage monkey kind of mindset in online communication very easy. Another common problem, as he points out here, would be the sort of the tendency toward online curation of our we kind of create a sort of avatar of ourselves, right? And we filter, especially young girls, right, filter their pictures. I have a couple of I know in my Facebook women who I knew, and I knew them, we knew each other as teenagers, and we're now in our early 50s, and watching these women who were they were the prettiest girls in class, to be honest with you. There's a couple I'm thinking of here, and boy, you can tell they're using filtered cameras and everything when they're sort of taking pictures of themselves now. They're still sort of they're so identified with their good looks that they're kind of hanging. It's just sort of kind of a sadness. They're watching them do that. At least one of them I know of is a very good person, and the pressure this puts on teenage girls, and especially who seem to really, and junior high school girls, I think, are the most susceptible to the potential trauma and damage that social media can cause, especially to young people, and just in general, though, it's just this sort of seems to be almost animating or further, energizing this sort of ambient sort of anxiety that's out in the culture anyway. We can't even help it comparing ourselves to others, no matter how many times we tell ourselves not to do it, right? And social media does seem to take that and again kind of isolate it and make it that much easier, because what it does is it makes it also easier to get to the positive things from social interactions, the validation, and that's what we need. We don't know who the hell we are without the people around us looking at it. We don't, that's how we figure out what's okay, what's not good, behavior wise, what's okay, what's not okay. And again, if you ever seen anyone with absolute power, like a dictator or something, there was a great documentary on HBO about Muammar Gaddafi, who was a brutal dictator in the Middle East, and boy, he started wearing makeup, and he looked more and more bizarre. And I'm sorry, but someone look at Donald Trump looked a little bizarre too with that freaking hair and everything else, because nobody can tell that he stopped taking any input. And when you're not, your friends aren't, maybe that's not look great in that. You just start missing all those things. You kind of becoming more and more sort of socially isolated, and you become a little bizarre and kind of lose touch with the rest of the tribe. I think that there's a sense of the flatness and shallowness of online interaction that can kind of exacerbate all that, and so probably needs to be watched a little bit. Anyway, I'll just stop there and give you a quick one for our opening reading here. That was Stephen Marche's Is Facebook Making Us Lonely? And a couple things worth reading for, especially that's astonishing opening couple of paragraphs. All right, catch you next time.